Welcome to episode 3 of One Game at a Time. I'm Seb O'Neill, one of your hosts, joined by 3 of our very special co-hosts, starting with Marc Talbot. Marc, how are you doing today?
I'm very well, and just quickly, happy 18th birthday, mate. Welcome to adulthood.
Yep, great. On to Alessio Carrocci. How's your week been?
Yeah, it's not bad. Getting pretty hot at work this week, but hopefully it cools down for the weekend.
Most definitely. And also joined by first time on this podcast, Antonis Pagonis. Antonis, how are you doing?
Yeah, good. Thanks for having me on to celebrate your 18th birthday podcast. Hey.
In no way is that the purpose of this, but we'll
Really?
continue.
I misread the memo.
As always, we'll start with our picks of the week. I'll go first. We'll talk about the Australia Cup. We had the results come in from over the weekend and had the cup draw on Wednesday. We'll just go through all the results and then we'll go through the fixtures. But just the results from last week, starting on the Friday night: Elizabeth Downs 6, Port Adelaide 3, Bossa 0, Tea Tree Gully 3, Adelaide Blue Eagles 1, Playford 0, Gawler Eagles 3, Noarlunga United 0, Salisbury United 7, Rostrevor Old Collegians 0, Western Strikers 6, Pembroke Old Scholars 0. Then on the Saturday, we had Mount Barker versus Cove 3-0. Oh, okay. Fulham 15, International from the Limestone Coast 0, Adelaide Hills 0, Adelaide Ammonia Cobras 4, Adelaide Pumas 0, Seaford Rangers 2, Cumberland United 14, beating amateur side Ingle Farm 0, Modbury 12, Narrow Court 0, Sacred Heart Old Collegians 2, Elizabeth Grove 3, Vipers 1, Sturt 2. Then on the Saturday, Adelaide Titans 0, Northern Demons 3, Garn United 1, Adelaide Victory 4, Pontian Eagles 2, Uni 1, West Adelaide 3, Eastern 1, Unley 1, and MA Hawks 2. And then another cup set, Para Hills East 3, West Torrens Burkalla 2. Now, we'll just, before we go through the results of the cup draw, any of those results that have caught any of our eyes, I went to go watch Downs versus Port with David, actually, and that was a pretty good game. I think Downs were just probably showed a lot more quality and just being better than Port, I think, at least that round. I found that they've only been Elizabeth Downs training for 2 weeks themselves. So, yeah, that's one game that really caught my eye. I don't know who wants to go on this one, but any other results that caught anyone?
Yeah, look, I think there was a couple that really sort of, apart from that one that caught my eye, I think the Cove convincingly beating Barker was probably one. Sorry, I'm only kidding. No, one game that did catch my eye, actually, I saw some highlights from it, was the Grove game. They won 3-2, and I saw the highlights, and I still do not know how they won. They unbelievably, that the other team, that they rode their luck big time on some of the shots. The keeper made some great saves, and then they managed to win it in extra time. So I think that sort of caught my eye a little bit, just because I actually got to see the highlights of that. But I think we all sort of picked the Downs. Well, I didn't pick Downs to win. I went with my heart with Port, but I did have a sneaking suspicion that Downs would take the win. So there were some, I think, not so much interesting, but there were a couple. But I think the ones that were the big wins, you're looking at 14-0 and 12-0. Probably the worrying factor, I think, because we don't want to see those kinds of results. Yes, it looks great for the team that wins, but does that then put off some of the teams that aren't as good for the future, like the International now want to come back down to Adelaide to play again next year? You know, does that put a downward sort of spin on those teams now dropping themselves into the cup?
Yeah, look, for me, I didn't watch any of the highlights like Mark has, but the one that did catch my eye was Para Hills East knocking off West Torrens Burkalla, who is a side who a couple of years ago were in the NPL. So that's definitely one that catches our eyes. And yeah, I'm sure we'll talk about the draw soon, but especially who they drew really catches my eye as well. So it's a side that I will be keeping my eye on because, yeah, definitely a very interesting result.
Alessio, I think we talk about the elephant in the room. You lost. I think it's better to face the fact than than go around it.
Yeah, well, we did have David Grant come out, and it looks like he hasn't showed his face since that weekend. So maybe he's the bad guy. But yeah, it was a tough game. I mean, had our chances in the cup set. If you would say it was on there for a bit. We got a penalty in the first half while it was 0-0, and ended that half and 0-0, but missed that penalty, and then had some chances to ruin the second half. But otherwise, I watched some of the highlight, or the goal at least, from the Blue Eagles Playford game, and I like to see the link up between Ricardo da Silva and Dante Cacciapolini as well. So I think that's going to be an interesting one, especially to see who they drew again, another top team away this time in the cup in the next round. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. But otherwise, I think looking at the team, Para Hills East, you could see the talent they had. And I think a lot of the Bacala team looked like they were quite new to be playing together, quite a lot of new signings that they've been betting in the last few weeks. So I think that Para Hills East, especially who they got in the next round as well, an NPL side. So I'm looking forward to see if they can get a cup set. If they play at home as well, that could be a real big game changer.
Yeah, well, we were talking about last week how Para Hills East weren't playing at home, but then we had quite a few venue changes from memory. Again, Para Hills East ended up playing at Ladywood Reserve, which is the home of the Modbury Jets amateur side. So they had 2 venue changes. I think there are a few more. So, yeah, very interesting in the cup. We can't wait for the next round. And then on Wednesday, we had the draws for the WMPL and WSL Cup and the next round of the Australia Cup for the WMPL WSL Cup. It's South Adelaide versus Adelaide Jaguars, Fulham United versus Western Strikers, their first year in the WSL, Cove versus Modbury Jets, Modbury Vista and Campbelltown City, and Elizabeth Grove versus Croydon. Of course, all WMPL teams have that bye through the first round. And there's no longer the reserves teams involved in the cup, which I think is probably a good thing that they now have their own competition, because I think we had a situation last year where West Adelaide Women's had their own reserves team in the first round. So the reserves team just ended up forfeiting anyway. And I don't think that's an ideal situation to have. And then shortly after that, we then had the Australia Cup preliminary round draws. We'll go through them now. Tea Tree Gully versus Adelaide Comets, Adelaide Croatia Raiders versus Adelaide Blue Eagles, Adelaide City versus South Adelaide, a repeat of what will be round 1. We'll talk about that soon. Seaford Rangers versus Modbury Jets, Cove versus Pontian Eagles, MA Hawks versus Adelaide Olympic, Pitbulls versus West Adelaide, Elizabeth Grove versus Croydon, Elizabeth Downs versus Gawler Eagles, a northern derby as such, Salisbury United versus Metro Stars, Sturt Lions versus Fulham United, Northern Demons versus Para Hills Knights, Western Strikers versus Campbelltown City, Adelaide Cobras versus Adelaide Victory. As you said, Para Hills East at home to FK Beograd, a huge one there, and Cumberland versus Modbury Vista. I think, as we said, probably the big ones to look out for are Para Hills East versus FK Beograd, Salisbury United against Metro even, Tea Tree Gully, another amateur side at home to Adelaide Comets. Those are probably my standouts for me. Any for yous?
Another one, all of these obviously stand out. Another one that stands out for me was MA Hawks against Olympic as well. That little bit of a Greek rivalry going on there. I'm sure it's going to be a nice atmosphere, good food, very loud. So it's what the cup's about, isn't it?
For me, I had a few of the similar ones that you were mentioning there. Para Hills East versus Beograd, Cobras versus Victory. I've heard a few people talking about that one, especially on the live stream as well. Evan Kunavalis, I'm sure he was getting a bit antsy about that one. Sturt versus Fulham as well. We've been ranting and raving about Fulham in the previous podcast, and it's going to be playing away against Sturt, who had a win in the cup as well. It'll be interesting to see what they do. I remember a couple of years ago they played the year that Sturt went up into the NPL. They actually lost to Fulham on the last day of the season. So I think they got an interesting couple of players there that might make it difficult. Salisbury versus Metro, and then the other one, Raiders versus Blue Eagles at Raiders. It's going to be an interesting one, seeing those two last year as well. Have quite a lot of good tussles in their fixtures. So, yeah, the 5 that I was looking at.
The cup round, it's thrown up some really interesting ties because we've got obviously some NPL sides against each other. But for me, it was the fact that all the amateur sides managed to get home games. I think that really plays into their hands in the fact that you've got to send a Metro or whoever, not Metro in this case, but you've got to send those NPL sides who are used to having nice big change rooms, fenced off grounds, some of them obviously on Astro or artificial. now they're going to places like the Downs or Ladywood Drive, where they've got no fencing. The change rooms are the size of a toilet, and the pitch, you don't know what's going to be there on the pitch. To be honest, it could be grass that's really short. It could be really long. You just never know with that now. So I think that's a bit of a leveler for those teams. So I think it's great that all amateur sides are actually at home.
Very much looking forward to the next round of the Australia Cup here in South Australia. Mark, we'll talk about your pick of the week. Your pick is about Western United, and there's a clip in particular which you want to talk about. We'll play the audio from it here. But yeah, we'll just have a look at it quickly.
NPL.
58. Campbelltown.
Win the NPL.
Who's gonna win the NPL?
Yeah.
Why City?
Who's gonna win the NPL?
NPL.
Yeah. Win the NPL.
LA City.
Win the NPL.
Freaking Raiders up to Croatia.
Let's go Croatia!
Who's gonna win the NPL?
Metro.
The NPL.
Eastern United.
The NPL.
Yeah, Eastern United.
What? NPL.
Metro.
Win the NPL.
Eastern United.
Who's gonna win the NPL?
Eastern United.
again.
I'm not gonna be here.
NPL.
South LA Panthers.
NPL.
LA City.
Win the NPL.
Aubrey.
Gonna win the NPL.
Raiders.
Win the NPL.
Campbelltown.
Who's gonna win? Who's gonna win NPL?
Metro.
Who's gonna win NPL?
South LA.
Who's gonna win the NPL?
I reckon Mowbray Jets, Francesco Schmizzi, top goal scorer.
Gonna win the NPL.
LA City. Nick Booker, top goal scorer of the league.
Win the NPL.
Seatown.
There's a few things I love about this. One is that you've got the SL2 side they're throwing themselves out there with the NPL stuff. I love that. I love that the teams are willing to talk about the other teams like that. I think it's great. And we all know Eastern really push the socials. They really try and take it to the next level with their production, with their game days. I mean, obviously, we saw the highlights from their game day from the other day with bubble machines, smoke machines, and things like that for walkout. So they're really trying to raise the bar, which I love it. I love the fact that they're taking things up and really trying to push, even though they're SL2, but they're still trying to push. They're still trying to create that atmosphere. I think it's great, but it also shows you what players are thinking as well. We had, I think, almost every team suggested are going to win the league, from Raiders to White City, Campbelltown, Adelaide City, South Adelaide. So it's just great seeing the guys just putting themselves out there. Yes, it might be a bit of a laugh, but it's great to see that a club in the SL2 is willing to jump on board, have a look, have their bit of say, and really sort of try and engage in social media. I think a lot of clubs could take some notes from Eastern in that regard. Hey, Alessio.
Wait, just wait. Our social media's on the up, mate. It's getting better.
I know, mate. I know. I just have to throw it out there, mate. Just have to throw it out there.
Our TikTok's gone wild as well from the photo shoot.
And
it's all going on.
It's good.
Shout out to the couple of Eastern United boys. I reckon they'll win the NPL this year. It's a big call, but I'm backing them.
But the good thing is they're also they're willing to make fun of themselves, obviously, with those little snippets about like Magic Johnson going, yeah, we're not going to be there, and things like that. I think that's brilliant. I think it's just raising that social profile. I think it's excellent.
Yeah, that's it.
Good from all clubs to see that sort of thing. Alessio, talking about the big game at Highmarsh, almost NPL versus A-League. Who's going to be playing for United in the NPL game versus the A-League game?
Yeah, so obviously we all know it's going to be the curtain raiser. It's going to be the big event. They're going to, in my opinion, I reckon they're just going to see how it performs well to see if they can actually have it as home ground for all the NPL games for Adelaide United, if it lines up with the A-League as well. But yeah, I was just interested to see what type of players are going to have play in both of these games. If you're allowed to have players play in the NPL game that are going to be on the bench after, or if you can have them in the squad, etc. Obviously, they've moved back their reserve game to 11 o'clock, so they can have players from that game appear on the first team bench or later in the game in that game as well. So they got enough time to use those type of players. But I just wanted to see what they're going to do with some of these new players. Like, is Stam going to be straight in, or do they have the A-League drop downs have first preference, which has been happening in a couple of the recent games? where a few of the people like Panache Madana, Ethan Alagic, Harry van der Sarg, a couple of them are getting straight into the lineup compared to some of these like young players. Like I know Antonis has been in a couple of the games, like Amlani Tatu, who has done excellently in preseason. I think he's almost scored in every game they've played. But if he gets knocked out of the starting lineup because a couple of the A-League players are going to drop down, what does that mean? But I think, it'd be interesting to see what Kyle does as well, because maybe those players will just sit on the bench room in the A-League and he'll have a look at the NPL players instead. But it'd be an interesting spectacle. I'm going to try and catch a bit of it, maybe the first half in the change rooms of my game, if my cousin's somewhere on the team sheet at least. But it'd be interesting to see. I'd like to see as well what the streaming is going to be like. It's going to be like similar angles to the A-League where they have a few of those cameras on that upper deck or stuff like that. I'd like to see what it's going to be.
Yeah, very interesting how that's going to play out. And I guess at the end of the day, that team is there to support the A-League team. So the A-League team, for better or for worse, and sometimes it really is for the worse, does take precedence with who does play. But yeah, it's just something to remember as well. Now with the season starting at the same time as the A-League, you're going to have a lot of this crossover and a lot of red tape with who's available and who isn't available. So it's really going to show us a bit with who Carl, I guess, sees as part of his plans right now and who needs a bit of a spell to get some fitness and fine form. That's number one. And number two, all the A-League listed players have to have a month off in June. So in that month especially, we are going to see a very, very young Adelaide United side. And again, that's going to be an interesting month. And then after that, who do you bring back in the NPL after? That's the other question. Because I can argue that someone like Johnny Yao has surpassed the need to play in the NPL. But again, it's the decision's not ours to make, obviously. So it's going to be very telling to see how United manages that. So that's definitely something I'm looking forward to.
You've also got to take into consideration that the NPL, they have to nominate their squad of 20 to 25 players, I think it is as well. So that it's not only that, they might look at players now and go, actually, well, they're not worth dropping back into the NPL. The likes of, as you said, Johnny Yule, somehow they're not going to put him into the NPL squad. So they've got to outline that NPL squad now before the season starts. So if they're on the border, some of those players are on that border, almost there, not quite there, they'll get the NPL spot. So you've also got to take that into consideration.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we don't, but they do.
Yeah, and of course, Mark, you'll be on that game with Johnny at Highmarsh. Before we talk about the full game, how excited for you to be at Highmarsh and do a regular season game before the A-League match?
Mate, I tell you what, that's for me. I'll tell you a funny story, lads. I had a club reach out to me because they needed a goalkeeper just for 1 week for this week. All right. Long story short, their goalkeeper's not unavailable. They've got permission to use someone that's not affiliated to another club. I won't give away any of the clubs or anything, but they were able to use it. So they came to me, and I was tempted to go, oh, look, I can do it. And then I was like, hang on a sec. No. I've got this game. I'd rather call. I'm at the stage now. I'm actually wanting to call a game instead of playing a league game, and so I'm like, nah, let's call this league game and have more fun with that. To be honest, so that shows you where I'm at now. It's like I'd be rather calling a game, especially at Highmarsh. And like I've said this from day one. As soon as I heard that Seb, you weren't available and Alessio's playing, I was like, sweet, I might get this game. I was like, cool. As long as Simon Hill can get that, he's on match the round that week. He's in Adelaide. Give me a chance to meet him, I'll be set.
Absolutely. And of course, yeah, it will be a great game to watch from wherever, whether you're at the stadium or watching online. Antonis, your pick of the week, you want to talk about players from the game between Comets and Olympic?
Yes, one from each team that I'm looking forward to for different reasons. Number one, I'm going to take a throwback back to my childhood. I don't even know how old you were then, Seb. But in 2011, T-Boy Kamara debuted for Adelaide United as a 15-year-old. And yes, on Saturday, he officially returned to South Australia as a 27-year-old for Adelaide Olympics. So, yeah, it's definitely a throwback. And I remember back in days as we were thinking, like, you know what, like in over a decade, he's still going to be in his prime. And look at him, he's still literally in his prime years. And it's going to be very exciting to have him back and to see what he can offer a team like Olympic who needs a bit of a push to get back to the final series, which they haven't been at since 2019. So really looking forward to see what he can do. He's looked all right in pre-season, so one to look out for. And the other one that I'm really personally excited for from Comets, Roberto Fernandez Garrido from come over from Devonport in Tasmania, 55 goals in 2 seasons. That can't be ignored. That's a lethal strike. And I don't know if you guys have seen it, the Penenka penalty he took in the grand final, like not anyone does that. So Comets have been looking for a striker that's fit, available every week, and that can just score consistently for years. Really looking forward to seeing if he can be this guy, because we see Metro Stars last year, how much a clinical striker can give you, and I'm wondering, can he be that for the Comets? So really looking forward to seeing him play in South Australia this season.
Something you're right there with that striker, Antonis. So can you tell me who their last striker that was a goal scorer that just did it week in, week out?
Tough. You have to go.
You're going back
way back.
You're going back a few years. He actually came out of retirement. I think it was last year. I can see his face. Can't think of his name. Alessio, you might know.
What was the?
Welsh scored quite a few, but the other one is
played Western Strikers last year. Came out of retirement. Played Western Strikers last year.
Wines.
Yep.
Yeah, Andreas. Yeah.
Yep. So he would have been their Comet's last real out and out striker that banged goals in.
You're right.
And he's been out. And you got to remember. So he was out of the game for probably, I reckon, 2 or 3 years. So it was like in his prime and really just banging goals in. So Comets have been looking for quite a while. So I'm looking forward. I hadn't seen anything on this Garrido guy, so I'm really looking forward to seeing what he has to offer.
Definitely.
I watched a couple of his pre-season games against Western Strikers and Blue Eagles, and he's a smaller figure, but he's definitely quick. Gets a lot of chances in games as well. And he's not too bad with his head as well. I think he scored a header against the Strikers when I watched. But yeah.
We'll definitely have to get on working our Spanish phrases and Spanish puns in our commentary, I think, this season. So, yeah, again, that's our picks of the week. And we'll go on to, finally, for the first time, our regular season games. And we'll go through them, starting with State League 2. We'll just give you the fixtures and we'll pick out some. We'll mainly go through MPL, but we'll pick out some from State League 2. So on the Saturday, 3 p.m, Pontian play Eastern, Cove play Noarlunga, Adelaide Uni play Seaford, and Port Adelaide at home to Albury Vista. Then at 3:30, Northern Demons play against Gawler, and then 4:30, it's a Hills derby between Hills Hawks and Mount Barker. I think we might as well start with that one. Alessio, how's the mood in the camp after a disappointing cup game? Are you looking to bounce back with the boys?
Yeah, well, I definitely hope so. I mean, last year we stayed undefeated against the Hills clubs in both games, and we're still a bit of wiggle room with the formation that we've been playing recently. And Hills also had a fairly big loss. I think it might have been away though, so it might have helped them. But otherwise, it's both clubs out of the cup now. They can focus on the league, and that's definitely one you want to get over anybody at the start of the season. At least if you know people who were, both of us were obviously bottom 2 last year. If you can get one at least over the teams near you, then you just push up from there. Playing away as well, grass pitch. It's going to be definitely better on the feet for some of the players, especially compared from last Saturday, how hot it was. But yeah, I'm confident in a win. We played well there last season. That was one of my first games for the club. And I think we had the lead twice and they just snatched it away with a couple of set pieces. But otherwise, yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it. I saw a couple of pictures of their pitch as well. It looks pretty good at the start of the season. So, yeah, I'm definitely keen for it. I think David Grant said he was going to come out as well, talk to some of the Hills locals. So,
are you willing to give a prediction for it, or
not a numerical one, but definitely a win for Barker is all I'm saying. A couple of the other games as well, I had some predictions for them. I think Uni are going to get the win as well. Cove versus Noarlunga, I think that one could be a real big game between the two. One of the top sides and one of our unanimous lower sides in Noarlunga. I think that's going to be maybe a big win for Cove. Vista, I think, are going to get a win. Uni are going to get a win on the other 2 games. I think it was Pontian was one of the other ones. I think that's going to be a draw. I think Seaford might be the other one. I think was going to be a draw as well.
Pontian versus Eastern. I reckon Eastern will get one up on that one. Antonis and Mark.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I would be backing Eastern. But yeah, it's very interesting, especially with Pontian, new manager, experienced manager. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how their season plays out. But I reckon round one, I will back Eastern as well.
Yeah, I'm agreeing there. I think I've got Eastern to finish near the top. I think they'll get the victory there. So
Is it
Cove
Pontian at
versus-
home or?
Yes.
Again, that could be a bit of a difference. They beat Uni there last minute of the game on the weekend, and I think that might have been a unanimous win for Uni. We said in the last podcast, so I think it could be interesting. Especially, everybody's been saying how quick their attack is and those wingers are. So I'd like to see how they do against a top team like Eastern.
Cove versus Noarlunga. I'll go with Cove for that one.
I think we all are.
Yeah.
Simple as that. Adelaide Uni versus Seaford.
This for me
I
is
reckon
quite
I'll
an
go
interesting
Uni.
game. Uni obviously coming off a loss last week, Seaford with the win last week. So it's been quite an interesting one. I think Uni have probably got enough. Like I said, I think Seaford without Brian, different aspects for them now, without their top goal scorer from last year. But I think Uni's probably just got enough to get over the line.
Yeah, I've gone Uni as well.
I'll go Uni too.
Port Adelaide versus Modbury Vista. Port Adelaide coming off a very disappointing loss to Downs, whereas Modbury Vista coming off a 12-0 win to Narracourt. So I think the spoils will go to Vista there.
Yeah, I'm backing Vista as well. I really rate the signing of Cooper Wegener from Modbury Jets. So that's one for me to definitely look forward to. I reckon he's going to have a year and a half.
Yeah, that's a great pickup for Vista in Cooper. I think we've seen him perform at NPL level, so I think he can continue those performances from NPL into the State League 2. He's really going to have a cracking season. Yeah, I'm struggling with this one, as you boys know, former Port player, so I do have a soft spot for them. I'm going to sit on the fence with this one. I'm going to pick the draw. Just I don't know if Port's got enough to win, especially with the signings Vista have made. So I'll sit on the fence.
Yeah, I've gone Vista. I think they've shown that they've been quite good last year, and even in their few games this year, I think they're going to get it done.
Up north, even more than I am, Northern Demons versus Gawler. I reckon Gawler will come out on top on this one.
It's a weekend full of derbies. It's their nearest derby, that one. You boys laughing, but it is. It's the nearest derby Gawler Demons have got. Because the other derby they've got, which is called the Distance Derby. So when I was at Seaford, we named the derby between Seaford and Demons the Distance Derby because it's the furthest point for the two teams. There's no one further. But I'm going to have to go with the Demons on this one against Gawler.
Yeah, you don't often call Gawler the southernmost side in the matchup, but that's what you get here. But yeah, I'm backing the home side. I reckon the Demons will be solid this year, especially under a new coach. So I'm backing Northern Demons.
Yeah, I had this one down as a draw. I think Gawler did quite well in their cup game, 3-0 at home against Noarlunga. I guess it's a lower side, but otherwise from all accounts, they look quite impressive. And I think it's, too tough a call for me. I'm going to keep it as a draw.
And then the big State League 2 headliner, Hills Hawks at home to Mount Barker. I will go last.
Another derby for the weekend. I'm going to just purely on form from the last season. Barker got the 2 wins last year, I think it was. So I'm going to go with Barker on this one.
I'm going to go Mount Barker with an Alessio assist.
No pressure, mate.
Definitely. I hope it's a goal even, especially the positions that I'm getting in now. But yeah, I reckon it's going to be a win for the boys, and it's going to be as we said, we've got Cove in the second round, so it's very important to get points straight up here, especially going back to like a tough team like Cove in the next one.
So far, I'm 1-1 with my predictions for Mount Barker, so I reckon you'll win this one at least, and we'll go 2 from 2 for my own Barker predictions. On to State League 1, all games being played on the Saturday at 3 p.m. Salisbury United, newly promoted, versus Vipers. I reckon Salisbury United will definitely get the win. Say with chest.
Yeah, look, I'm going to go with Salisbury as well. I really like the way Salisbury have gone about their signings. Really like the way that they're continuing from last season. I think they had a great season, obviously, last year. And they've strengthened in the right areas for them. I think like they brought in Strain, who's a goal scorer. They brought in another keeper, so there's some competition there in between the sticks. They brought in another centre back as well, which I think was needed. But then they've still got the likes of Munchie, who's just one of the great centre back, threat on corners. and they've got Harrington still there, and they've also still got Taylor, the captain. So I think they've recruited well, and I think that will bode well for the whole season. But I'll certainly give them the win this week.
Mm-hmm. I agree, Mark. It's just a club that is just quietly doing a lot of things right. I agree. And I've had a couple of former students that have signed up with Salisbury that I'll be featuring. So got to go with them in the first week.
Yeah, I agree as well. I got Salisbury to win this one. Big win in the cup as well. Was it 7, I think? And Vipers, I think they lost to Sturt 2-1. So I think it's a lot of good form to bring into the game. And yeah, a lot of their new signings scoring straight away on their debut. So be a good one for Salisbury at home as well. So giving them the win.
Unanimously, Salisbury there. Western Strikers also newly promoted against Fulham United at home to Fulham United. But I reckon they'll struggle in this first one and Fulham will get the win.
Yeah, I think it's we've been ranting and raving about Fulham all season. They proved us right again. Yeah, I think everybody's in agreement by now. But yeah, they've proved us right in the cup as well. What a big win. Only thing might be a bit difficult. I don't know how many games they've played on grass so far this year. So to play it away at Western Strikers could be tough ground to go to. But it's probably almost a derby there as well, Mark, don't you think? The West Side derby.
Yeah, they're pretty close to each other, that's for sure. And the Strikers pitch is in really good condition at the moment. So just played on that last week, not the week before. But yeah, the pitch is in good condition. So I think it'll be a great way for them to get onto grass quite early. But yeah, Fulham, we have ranted. Actually, I should say Alessio's ranted and raved about him, and I think he's convinced us. I think that's what it is. I think he's the driving force behind the convincing there. But I have to say, I'll go with Fulham in this one.
Yeah, got to agree. I've liked a few of the stuff they've done. I really like a young player like Henry Filsell, who couldn't get many minutes at Adelaide City, going and backing himself at State League 1 level, and I think can be a big season for him as well. And yeah, backing him in round 1 too.
Yeah, I think they had a player who might have a sister in the women's NPL, Wheatrek. He scored 6 in the cup last week, so he's maybe another one to look out for as well.
Also on Saturday at 3, Adelaide Cobras versus Playford, a pretty even one, I think. I reckon I'll back the draw for this one. It's pretty tight to call.
Yeah, very tight to call. I was thinking a draw as well, but yeah, very tight. I think Playford will be without Poundendis to start with, I think. So that might have an effect. But yeah, I think the draw is probably the way to go.
I'm back on the home side here. I want to get off the fence.
Yeah, I've given the draw as well. Obviously, the defence is quite tight. If they didn't let any in against Blue Eagles, another promotion hopeful as well. So I think it's going to be quite a similar game, but I think they might get a goal. Looking at their lineup from the cup as well, it's pretty similar to what they had last year. So yeah, and they've been promoting a couple of their new signings as well, a couple of the promoted lads from their reserves. So I think they're going to do well this season and maybe start off with a draw away. It's always a tough place to go as well, Cobras.
Cumberland versus Sturt. Sturt, newly relegated. Cumberland just missing out on the final last season, but I reckon Sturt will come out on top.
Yeah, this is another tough one. I'll go with Sturt, I think, and it'll be a very tight affair. I think it will be a lot closer than we anticipate or anyone anticipates. But I think I'm not going to sit on the fence, so I'll go with a Sturt win. But it'll be very tight, very close win.
So I'll go on the fence here, I reckon. I'm going to call the draw here. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to Zakaria Abdullahi from Cumberland, young boy that they've signed, full of energy, lethal striker, won the African Cup with Somalia this year too. I reckon he's going to develop into a really handy player. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how he goes this year. But yeah, draw for me.
I'm going with Sturt as well. Obviously a former club of mine and a lot of former players that I've played with. And I think almost every time we played against, or they played against Cumberland in the Cups and the first few leagues in the State League, they just seem to beat them every single time. I don't know what is the difference about that. Since that elimination final in 2019 at West Beach, since then I don't think they've lost to Cumberland in any of the fixtures they've come up against them with. So I'm definitely backing a win for Sturt, and I hope their new striker, Brian, gets on the score sheet like he did on the weekend in the Cup. So good way to mark a debut.
And the final match for State League 1 in match week 1 is West Torrens Burkalla versus West Adelaide. Again, another pretty tough one to call, but I reckon that I'll go for West Adelaide.
Yeah, look, I'm going West Adelaide as well. And I think for me, I think West Adelaide, if they can keep Jackson fit in goal, I think that will go a long way for their season. They missed him a lot last year in the NPL when he went down injured, and he missed a good portion of the season. That's why they had to bring in. They brought in the reserve keeper, then they brought in Michael Gomez, funny enough, from the Downs. But I think if he can stay fit throughout the season, I think he can really help that side just settle the back line, really provide a presence back there, and I think that will keep them in good stead for the rest of the season. So I'll back a West Adelaide win this week.
Mm-hmm. Both O'Donnells, really, for me, because even Cooper going down was huge for the midfield last year, and I reckon he's going to be even bigger and better at this level. So yeah, I'll back them, and the signing of Yanis Nestoras is big as well. Can be just someone that consistently scores for them. Can be a solid season, but yeah, I'll back him to begin the season.
I've sat on the fence for this one, giving it a draw. I watched a lot of that end of their live stream against Eastern, and they looked quite even for most parts of that game until they finished at the end. I think it was the 90th minute. They got a sealer to make it 3-1. There was a couple scuffles and fights at the end there, but I think they're going to be a lot closer than much of us thought. I don't know if was it Mark who had them in the top contenders for the league.
Top three, yeah.
Yeah, so did I.
And I had Bacala definitely in the 6. And I think after that, I guess, shock for them to come out in the Cup so soon. I think it wasn't too long ago they were in Cup semi-finals, Cup quarterfinals. So a bit of a shock for them. And I reckon they might bounce back and have a good performance against West Adelaide and hopefully get a draw, I reckon.
How exciting. Just before we move on to the NPL, yeah, how exciting about State League 1. All those games pretty tough to call, and I think it shows how tight of a season it will probably be again as it was last year in State League 1.
I don't know if we can get much tighter than that.
Yeah, and that's it. State League 1, it's one of those leagues. It's once you get in, it's hard to stay in from going up, and it's one of the hardest leagues to get out of when you drop into it. So it's one of those leagues. Everyone wants to get out, but it's so difficult to get out.
It's the same mentality with the championship in England, but you've got like double the clubs there. But yeah, it's the only way to describe it's a dogfight. That's what it is, and so many clubs are just so close together. And you saw just how close it was last year. Within a week, like half the competition could have finished in the top 2. I think it was, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, you look at it. Victory were top of the table. I think with a third of the way through the season, or 3/4 of the way, halfway through the season, and then they finished 8th or 9th and didn't even make finals. So it just shows you what can happen in that league. It's just so volatile in the fact that you could lose 2 games and you drop from almost top to out of the finals. And then, I mean, fortunately, there's normally with relegation in there's normally one team that's really does unfortunately struggle. So it's normally one spot that's up for grabs to take for relegation. So, but it's just always so tight. Like I said, once you get into it, it's hard to stay in. But if you drop into it, it's hard to get out.
I think we might have missed one that's on the Monday night, Blue Eagles and Adelaide Victory. It's the last game in the State League 1 there. And Martin, I didn't see it until now, but I think that's going to be another tough clash. I reckon Blue Eagles are going to have a bit of a fortress there at Martin this season. For some reason, it just strikes me as a place that so far they're going to do well at, and they're going to get a lot of fans out there. Made some noise in that Cup game that I saw from some of the videos in the stands. Adelaide Victory, they also had a win against an amateur tight side on the weekend, but their coach actually got sent off, Rick Soraccio for Adelaide Victory. And I looked at the dribble team sheet and he got yellow cards within minutes. One in the 85th, one in the 86th, and he was off. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do without a coach. At least for one game, I think it will carry over.
You know who steps in then? So their assistant coach is Damien De Palma. Great lad, good coach. I've known Dipper for a long time. But Jim Sakinis is also assistant coach at Victory. So he's moved from West Adelaide to Victory within a couple of weeks. So I dare say it'll be De Palma and Sakinis will step into that role. And you look at it and you go, well, Sakinis has been coaching NPL. And like I said, and Damien's been involved with that club for quite a number of years, was a reserves coach. So he knows the boys really well. So I don't think they're going to miss too much in that aspect on Monday night.
And I just think, I don't know, some grounds just have this weird energy about them for some days of the week. I reckon Marden on Monday night is just a match made in heaven, and I reckon they can't lose like that on the first day of the season on the Monday night on the first week. So I'll back them. I'll back the Blue Eagles on the Monday night. Their favourite time slot of theirs.
Yeah, they've kind of stolen that from Adelaide City, I think. Adelaide City used to do it quite a number of years ago, and now they've made it their home on a Monday night. I remember playing, you're saying how they don't lose on a Monday night, a season opener. I've played in a season opener there on a Monday night, and we managed to, I was at Seaford. It was the year we went up, so it would have been 2018, and we managed to get away with the draw.
There you go.
So unfortunately for victory, though, I don't see it happening, so I'm going with Blue Eagles.
You really built that up to just drop them.
Yep.
I reckon I'd agree with Blue Eagles too. So on to the NPL, 3 days of football spread across the Friday, Saturday and Sunday. But we'll start with the season opener, the most prominent Northern derby between Modbury and Para Hills at Smith Partner Stadium. Alessio, you and I will be on that one. And I think we're both pretty excited to see what comes out of it.
Yeah, I mean, both sides, from what we saw last season, are just surprise packages. The players they've got and now the ones that they've signed as well, it's going to be fantastic to see what they can do. We were talking in the previous episode about Para Hills and who they've lost and who they've gained. And I think it's going to be super interesting to see some of these Burundi boys, some of the new imports as well, see what they can do for Para Hills. And, of course, at Modbury Jets, you've seen they've kept a lot of their players from last year. They, as we saw in that Eastern video, a couple of the friends of Francesco Schmitzi are tipping in for a big season. You got the McKay boys as well. It's going to be, a very tight clash. I actually predict this one to be a draw. But, I'm definitely excited. I don't really get up to Modbury too much during the season, so it's going to be a good time to get there, and hopefully starts off with a nail-biting encounter like the ones I have got up to, therefore.
Yeah, I agree with a prediction of a draw. I reckon it's going to be a really hard-fought one. And like you said, a couple of those boys like Nabu Hussein or like a Vian Kurokumana, they've been given the platform to be stars because that's what Para Hills needs to scrap to survive this season. You know, they're at this weird point, Para Hills, that they're producing players, but the players they're producing are a bit too good because then United comes in the swoops to get them. Last couple of years with Ryan White and Riley Stam. So, yeah, it's left them in a tough situation, but they've got players that I think if everything lines up, they can have a solid season. So it doesn't start bigger than this. So I reckon they'll be up for it, and I reckon they'll give Modbury a fight, and I reckon it's going to be a draw.
I've played in this game well in the past. I'm too old for now. But look, as we were saying, Blue Eagles Monday night, Modbury Jets Friday night at Smith Partners. It's what used to be the way in football. I used to, as a kid, I used to go up to Modbury Jets ground on a Friday night. I used to watch the likes of Jason Trimboli, Matthew Milosevic, and that was a Friday night. You got that, and the place was packed. And that's what made Modbury. And they're starting to bring that back. You know, they're playing their games on Friday night, and I think they need to do that more and more. Even in the middle of winter, play those games on Friday night, use it to their advantage. I think Modbury will have probably just a little bit too much for Para Hills in this one. I think Modbury will get up with the home ground advantage, the year experience in the NPL. So I'm going for a Modbury win, but I think it will be a very tight game, very close game. And I think Theo's got the Para Hills boys to a really good level. I think he's a great coach. So I think it's going to be quite a tight affair, but I will go with Modbury, I think. Just being on a Friday night, back to their traditional Friday night home games, I'm just going to go with Modbury.
I reckon it's tough, but I think I want to go high scoring. But I think I'm going to go high scoring draw. I'll go like a 3-3 or a 2-2, I reckon, to start off the NPL season. Moving on to the next day at the Croatian Sports Centre, Adelaide Croatia Raiders' first game up in the NPL for this season against Croydon, who, according to Johnny, will finish top 2 this season. So I guess we'll find out what they're made of after this one.
With them, I do tend to agree with Johnny, not to that extent, but I think if a few things go their way, I reckon they can push for like top 4. I think they've had a couple of injuries. I can't confirm it, but I reckon they've had a couple of injuries in the last friendly game, which do concern me. And I reckon, Adelaide Croatia is one of those clubs that just run and thrive on passion, and they've been waiting for a couple of years to return to this spot. So I'm going to let that emotion get the better of me, and I'm going to back them for a home win to begin with. But yeah, definitely not discounting Croydon, who I reckon will be very, very good this year once it starts settling and clicking with each other. I really rate what they've done.
Look, I'm going to go with Raiders. I can't not go with Raiders on this one, I think. Former club, great club. They've barred their time in State League One. They got themselves out of it last year, and Blazek is doing a great job out there. And he really does work that passionate angle, which is brilliant, which is what the Croatians are known for as well. Obviously, a lot of clubs are, but they're a special breed at times. We saw that in the final. So I really think that they're going to do well, and I know they've brought some big names in. And I'll let Costa jump on. I'll let Alessio jump on something that he brought up earlier regarding that. He posted it in our chat. But yeah, look, I think Raiders will get up there.
Yeah, I tend to agree on the prediction of the score. The winner. Sorry, with Raiders winning at home. There's such a fortress there at Croatian Sports Centre. As we saw as well today, they announced their captains, Anthony Costa leading the line. But in this round one, to my knowledge, I was talking to him today, actually, it looks like he's going to be out injured with a groin injury for the first round and possibly some after. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do after. I think Manly Barnett is the first vice that they have on their listed. So otherwise, he was our tip, most of us, for the top scorer in the league. So he might have to wait a few games to get his name on the tally. But I think they're going to be great package this year. Raiders, I had them in the top four as well. As we know, always happens. Promoted teams get into the finals. I think they're going to be the more likely out of the two that came up to get there. And you see what they've done with their signings as well. Poaching some of the best talent as well. Stefan Matteo played in an NPL final and he's already been scouted elsewhere. You got some people like Paul Radici, who probably had not the best of his seasons last year, had to go on loan to Blue Eagles at the end of the year to get some game time and scored some goals. And otherwise, they've just picked up some talent that's been in the NPL season professionals. And I think they just got enough this year to make a real dent in this league.
Yeah, just before I go on to my prediction, I put out a tweet during it was never announced officially, but we saw Donatien Nionkuru and Alex Gatunis now playing for Central Coast, their academy side in the NPL, which I think is great to see. Defender Gatunis and Nionkuru, a great attacker from last year, lit up State League One. Just great to see both those two players getting those opportunities abroad. Not abroad, over interstate, sorry.
So we're not that far away.
Yeah, we're not joining Western Australia in their secession.
No, exactly. There's no water between us and them yet. So.
So yeah, just congratulations to them, and obviously hope they do very well. And Nionkuru actually scored in his first game against Sydney United, where they had 3 red cards, I think it was, towards the end of it. One for punches thrown. Yeah, so interesting. But I reckon I'll go with Croatia Raiders as well for that one. Then at 4 p.m, the big one at probably the biggest stadium NPL football's ever been played at in South Australia. Adelaide United Youth versus Campbelltown. Huge. I think Campbelltown will come on top, though.
I'm agreeing with you, Seb. I'm going Campbelltown too. Just because due to the uncertainty of the United side, due to the possibility of someone being dropped in the team or a couple of people being dropped in that team that may not be match fit, they may not play a lot of games with their teammates. So there's a lot of moving variables for this week for me. I do think it'll be a competitive game. I think it'll be a fun watch. But yeah, I'm backing Campbelltown, who just have quality everywhere, it seems, these days. So their team is going to be really fun to watch.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I have Campbelltown as winners as well. I'd like to see what they do in that midfield, especially if they're missing 2 major players like Alex Mullen and Kristen Konstantopoulos. But that attack is just too lethal for me. And I think, yeah, as Antonis was saying, the players Adelaide United are going to play, we're not too sure yet. I think at least like who some of the fullbacks would be, some of the centre backs, probably a couple of young players like John Paul and Bembe. But other than that, it's just going to be a toss in the air to see who else plays. And I think Campbelltown have had that solidity playing many preseason games, getting their minutes up under Matriciani. I think they're going to be too good at this point of the season for most people that they come up against.
Yeah, look, the Adelaide United side is always an unknown, as you said, Antonis. We just don't know what's gonna happen with them, and I think I actually want to give them some credit. I think the fact that yes, we don't know what they're going to have, we don't know what they're going to be, what players they're able to select from, and things like that, and if players are going to come down from the A League, the likes of Sug or I know Duzel played against FK Beograd the other week. So there's players that have come back from injury or playing in there. So it'll be interesting to see what they are able to put out on the park. But the way they're coached, it doesn't matter who comes in. They all know their role. Anton goes through every step of the way they play. So it doesn't matter who comes in. They know their role. They know their job. They know how the game's played. They know what they're supposed to be doing individually and as a team. So I don't think it will be a big difference between the two teams. We know Matriciani. I've seen him coach. I've been lucky enough to work with both of them as coaches. And Matriciani is very much the same. All the players will know their job, their role, the team role, the individual role. So it'll be very much a tactical battle as well. And I'm actually hoping I'm going to actually sit on the fence, but go for a 3-2 draw.
That'll be a good platform for it, definitely.
I'm hoping
not a good platform for the defenders, though. But
that's the other thing to consider
keeper.
with Adelaide United. For the first time in a couple of years, they've got a keeper with minimal experience out there. I assume Oscar Page will start, with Ethan Cox needing to back up Delinov in the A-League, and obviously Stephen Hall moving on. He had a tough day, a couple of tough days last year when he had to be called up. He's a young goalkeeper.
I remember our first game we did together when he played against Stoke. He didn't have a too good of a game that game from memory.
So, but that's, I guess, the journey of the goalkeeper. It's a much different position, as Mark will tell you, than all the others. And especially being like the professional side's academy goalkeeper, you have to play a certain way that can play with your confidence. So it's going to be a journey for him. But, yeah, we're looking forward, because he's a really good shot stopper and someone who, when he's on, can play really well with the ball at his feet. So looking forward to another goalkeeper coming out of South Australia.
Yeah, I'm expecting big things from him. I've seen him in brief spurts last year, so I'm quite excited to see what he can do as a former keeper. It's always good to see these young keepers getting an opportunity, coming through the ranks wherever they are, and just performing. So, but yeah, like I said, unfortunately, I'm just seeing I just want to see lots of goals. So I'm picking, like I said, it's going to be quite a high scoring draw for me. Fingers crossed.
Absolutely. We'll go over at the same time to Adelaide City Park, between Adelaide City and South Adelaide. And you know what? I'll go South Adelaide for the possible upset. Why not?
It's funny you say that, because I think it was last year how Adelaide City struggled playing away there at the Southern Sports Complex. And I think it's possible that it could happen, especially if I'm not sure if it's at a night game or a normal 3 p.m. kickoff.
4 p.m. 4 p.m.
4 p.m. I wish it was a Friday night as well. That's another local thing they do a lot there. South Adelaide at home on a Friday night or a Saturday night even. And they get quite good crowds there as well. Now that they're the only Southern team left in the NPL, they might get even more. But I had predicted the expected City win. But as we know last year, you never know what can happen away there at South Adelaide. Maybe that's the toughest place to go in the NPL this year.
Is it at South or City Park?
It's at City.
Yeah.
City.
Oh, sorry.
Alessio, you're going to go for Adelaide City now?
I'm still going for Adelaide City even more now, if you say that. I think they might have struggled against them both times. I think South Adelaide have put up such a good fight against Adelaide City the last few years, especially JJ Wright out and some of those defenders giving them nightmares. But maybe we could see what something can happen this day.
Yeah, I reckon I'm going to go a draw for a couple of reasons. We've got, obviously, South Adelaide, who not only stayed up with Sturt going down, that helped them even more. Picked up a couple of very handy players there. But also, Adelaide City's form in the off-season has been a bit sketchy. I reckon they'll get it together, not from round one. So, and, Adelaide City, regardless of how they're doing, where they are on the table, it's like, a red flag to a bull with a lot of these sides, because everyone's growing up knowing this is Adelaide City. It doesn't matter who plays for them. You attack the shirt, you don't attack the man. So I reckon sides like South Adelaide really see it as a badge of honor downing a team like that, regardless of where they're at when it comes to their form. So that's something that you don't adapt to. It's something that players that signed for Adelaide City have to realize after a while. So I'm going to go with a draw. I reckon Adelaide City will take a few weeks to get together. I reckon they will. But yeah, I'll begin with a draw.
I like the signings that South have made. If they can utilise those signings and play the football that includes those signings and their capabilities, I think they could do some damage to a lot of teams. I mean, I've got them in that bottom group of teams, but I know that they've got a tough round one. They've got a tough draw to start with, but they'll want to take as many points as they can. It's unartificial. They'll play on the grass at Adelaide City, so that could be a bit of a factor. But to be honest, at the moment, I look at Adelaide City's back line and I worry about their back four, depending, like if it's the players I actually think the likes of Alex, JJ could have some cause some real damage to that back four of Adelaide City. So I'm actually going to go for a draw.
Very, very interesting for that one, I think. Adelaide Comets versus Adelaide Olympic at Service FM Stadium at 4:15 p.m. Also on the Saturday, I reckon Comets will come out with the win here.
I'm going Comets here as well. It's just one of those games that you just don't really know what to expect from these two sides coming in. Like, you can see them competing to fight for finals, you can see them struggling and everything in between. So I'm really it's just seeing the season start and seeing them face off against each other. It's going to tell us a lot about where they sit. I will go with Comets, and the big reason is Roberto Fernandez, Garrido that I mentioned before. I think he just strikes me as a player that will be hungry to announce himself right from round one, and I reckon his team has been more than happy to feed him. So yeah, I'm backing a Comets win and a Garrido goal.
Yeah, I would tend to agree as well. I think Comets are going to have probably a similar season as they did last year. I think I had them in the 6 just about. They always seem to be in and around the mark. And I hope Garrido starts off his season well. I think my prediction last week was for a hat-trick in the Cup. And I think we got more than a few of them. But I think maybe this week I would agree with Antonis for a Garrido debut goal.
I like Olympic. Again, I'll say it, former club. I'm just not sure how well the players will gel this early. I mean, they've had a pre-season, obviously, but there's still a lot of work to be done around the club, a lot of new players. So Comets a very settled side. There's not a lot of change. There's a few players that have come in, but the core is still effectively the same. So you still got the likes of Lacornu, you've got your Labasso, your Vaughan. So you've got a core that's still there, Anajanto. So I just think that will have enough. And I'm really excited about this Garrido. So I really want to see him, how he performs. And I think, like I said, they've been struggling for a goal scorer. So if he's going to score goals, I tell you what, I think Comets could have a really good year. When I picked them, I think I had him in the top 4 or 5. But if he scores goals, then that puts him right back up near the top sort of 2, top 3. So, but I'll go with the Comets win.
On to Sunday for your afternoon football at Frank Mitchell Park, FK Beograd versus Metro. Antonis, you will be there and on the mic. How much are you looking forward to this one, and what do you think? I think personally Metro will come out on top, but interested to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, look, I was there for FK Belgrade's last friendly, and there was still no scaffold there. And I'm getting very nervous about where we'll be calling that game from. So I'm hearing that they are getting a permanent one. I do hope that's in place as we speak. Otherwise, yeah, it's going to be a different one. But yeah, look, it's going to be an interesting one. Metro Stars, obviously, when you lose 2 players like Temelkovsky, like Osna Yubi, they're not easy to replace. But, you know, they've signed a few players, and a couple from, obviously, Stefan Tentari from Tasmania, young player, looking forward to seeing how he goes. But a couple of young players who have been more impact players in New South Wales, that's taking a punt on them. So they can really work out for you, or they can be not what you expect. I still reckon Metro Stars will be around the mark. Beograd's one of those sides that I'm like, you can just literally be anything, can't you? And yeah, I don't know what they'll deliver. I'd like to say they're going to give Metro Stars a fight to begin with, and I'm leaning towards a draw, maybe because I wanted a bit of excitement in our first week. I do think, like, someone like Jason Konstantopoulos really stands out for me. He's still very young, but I think like the club will give him this platform to be their next star. We know they've had a few over the years, and I do think he can be that next one for them. I'm hoping Andoni Natsiopoulos is good to play. Don't want to see the captain miss the first match, but speaking in his shoulders a lot better than the one he did last year. So hopefully he does play some part on Sunday. It's his first NPL game as captain. So yeah, it's going to be a fun one. And yeah, I'm going to go a draw.
I'm not sure which way to go with this one. I like what I've been hearing about FK Beograd and some of their signings. Obviously, I've got a connection there that's able to provide me with some in-house details, which is always nice. But I do like the way they're shaping up. They've got some great signings, and obviously they've signed the likes of Trimboli as well, who adds another dynamic and another element to the way they play. Constant, I really like the Constant boys and the way they play. I know Campbelltown are going to be missing their Constant, but I think Jason's quite a good player. So if they can provide that platform, then yeah, I think Antonis is right. He could really become the next big player for them. I like they've got some really good goalkeepers as well. They've got 2 keepers fighting for a number 1 spot, 3 keepers fighting for a 1 spot, which is only good for the keeper ranks. That's excellent because they're not relying on one. They've got Kavanagh, they've got Signoran, and they've got Jan Jokic. So really, really good options there. So I'm actually quite looking forward to it. And I think, you know what, I'm going to go a Beograd win just as a bit of an upset, just to surprise a few, because I don't think people are going to expect too much from them. And I think they just might have enough. And I think the other thing is if they can provide Shearer with the chances, he will score. He's a great finisher. And I don't know if he'll have enough to get Golden Boot, but if they can give him the opportunity and get him in the right spots to score, he'll take 1 of 2 chances. So I'm going to go with an upset, and I'm going to actually go with Beograd just as a pure surprise package.
Mm-hmm. And I do think Trimboli as well, from the games I've seen in preseason, he's really taking on that. I guess obviously come from Campbelltown and not playing as much as he would have hoped. He's really taking that on as being that leader, that experienced player that needs to be providing for them in the final third.
Yeah, I actually had this game down as a Metro Stars win myself. It was pretty surprising. I think it was the last trial game they had with Beograd had against United. I was very surprised with such a commanding win there. I think it was 3-0 in the end. So maybe they got a bit more to show than what a couple of us had them in the predictions with. But yeah, I think it's going to be a tight game as well. That pitch looks in decent condition for the time of the year as well. And it's going to be super interesting to see all these debuts for Metro Stars for their new signings.
Well, that's all fixtures from the men's leagues that will be happening this weekend. We're all very, very excited to be back. All the players, I'm sure, are very excited to be back. Of course, calling games across the weekend. I guess just as a final thing, not necessarily what game you're excited to commentate, but what game are you most excited for in general? My pick is probably United versus Campbelltown, just for the pure spectacle of it as well.
Yeah, I think being at Coopers, it's still Highmarsh to me, but being at Coopers,
they're not paying us.
It's always a draw card. It's always a draw card, obviously, to play a league game there, and especially being a curtain raiser. From a comms point of view, I'm hoping that Paramount send their big boys and they actually send them to the stadium. But overall, actually, there's not one game for me that goes actually like all of them for me this weekend are exciting. You've got the derby, like Para Hills Mulberry back in the NPL. For me, brilliant, love it. You've got FK Beograd, who probably underperformed last year, coming up against Metro, who were unlucky not to make finals, and who were the best team across the league. So I think all the games are really exciting this weekend. I'm not saying there's going to be one bad game. I think we've all got something on, and I just really excited for this weekend.
Yeah, and look, it's not like, for example, with the A-League where you see a lot and you hear a lot, but you see it as well. In these leagues, you hear a lot, but you don't always see it. So round one's always the opportunity to see everything and say, all right, I can make my own judgments now. So there's always a lot to figure out for yourself in the first week, which makes it even more interesting. I am really looking forward, though, to the Hindmarsh game with Adelaide United and Campbelltown, especially for the reason that, since we no longer have the grand finals at Hindmarsh, it's actually a really cool opportunity for a lot of these young players to play at Hindmarsh. You don't get it much anymore, and especially, you mentioned how Campbelltown's missing a couple of its experienced players. Well, what a great opportunity for some of these young boys that would have been playing reserves and stuff like that last year to play on the big stage before the A-League game. So really excited for that, because it's something we used to take for granted, and it's something now that is a really treasured opportunity that not many will be getting in the coming years if we continue with grand finals of Service FM.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement that big game between those two is going to be the highlight of the week. I'd like to see as well what some of these young Adelaide United players can adapt to. This such a big pitch as well. I know they've played a lot of their home games previously. Service FM's quite large. Martin Sports Complex is quite large, but just the sheer atmosphere and the stands being that tall either side of you is just a different spectacle altogether. And then I know Campbelltown in the three-peat, they had all those great performances at Hindmarsh in those years, and they really dominated. I remember, I think it was maybe the 2019 title win. I just remember that midfield of Campbelltown with Pictionary, Mullen, and they were just all over the pitch. The other teams never had a chance against them the way they dominated that pitch. So if it's more of that, then it's going to be a great game to watch for both of the Reds.
Someone should tell Campbelltown to play in the comments this weekend, and I reckon they're going to absolutely steamroll them. If history is anything to go by, they love a good win at Hindmarsh.
We all absolutely cannot wait for the first round of the men's NPL and State League 1 and State League 2 this weekend. Of course, all games available now to watch on YouTube at FSA Leagues. And just before we go, also a big shout out, if you want more football content as well, the local game hosted by our very own Johnny Kecko starts this week. So make sure you watch that on YouTube and Channel 44. I'm sure we'll be knowing Johnny, it'll be filled with fun and puns.
Yeah, so it airs on YouTube on Thursday night if you're interested at about 6ish. So especially for those players that are training, they can come in and watch it straight after, and then it airs on Channel 44 on Friday. I think it's 6 o'clock on Friday, and then replayed it's got replay on a Saturday and a Sunday as well. So I was lucky enough to be on his first show. So I was lucky enough to co-host with him for his first show. So look out for it and have a good laugh. We have the one and only Nat Harrison, or for some of those older guys that listen to this, Nat Adamopoulos, who massive shout out. She used to film all her own games. She used to put the show together full on football, and she used to do it all herself. And she was on the show as well. And she's also another shout out to Johnny there. He had her on his podcast, Kicking Up Local podcast as well, which will be an amazing listen. So highly recommend listening to that one when it comes out. She's got some great stories.
Mm-hmm. And a weekly thing as well, week after week after week. Make sure you keep tuning in. It takes a lot of time and effort. I'm sure we can all agree to put the things we put together, and getting people to get around it only encourages more of it. So if you see it, get around it, share it. If you enjoy it, make sure you let him know. Make sure you let everyone know.
That's it. And that's this podcast as well, Antonis.
Yeah, that's it. With everything, get around things you enjoy. Don't only get around the negatives, get around the stuff you love.
Absolutely. Plenty of content, plenty of things to watch and listen to surrounding even just South Australian football in general. A very, very exciting season to come ahead. That's pretty much all from us for this week, boys. Thank you, Alessio, Marc, and Antonis for joining me. It was a pleasure to have you all. And I'm sure we'll be very excited to come back next Wednesday to preview more and review the fixtures from this weekend coming as well.
All good. Happy birthday, Seb.
The big 18.
Thank you.
Welcome to adulthood, mate. Does that mean you get your license and start driving yourself to games now?
Oh, I have my L's. Just takes time.
That's why Matt left. He's like, my job here is done. He's an adult now.
Yeah. Thank you all for listening. Thank you guys for joining me, and we'll make sure to see you all next week for another episode of One Game at a Time.